Tonight on NBS Face Off, my guest tonight is Honorable Ssemujju Nganda. The man who has come out as one of Uganda's most critical parliamentary voices. We sit down with him after 15 years in parliament. What lessons has he learned on Uganda's politics? Honorable, many thanks for allowing to speak to us on NBS Face Off.
Thank you.
What has been your proudest moment in parliament for 15 years?
It's very difficult to recall everything that has happened in the 15 years. I chaired a committee on COSASE 2014-2016, did a report, 2 reports, but the most important one for me was a report on human resource in public enterprises. Not because of the statistics generated out of that report, because 49% of the CEOs were all coming from Western Uganda, 9 from the north, about 21 from the center. And when I hear the president saying he has transformed Ankole, he wants people to go and visit, that transformation has come with many things, including those kind of appointments. So my work in COSASE, I am very proud of what I did. I don't want to judge others, but I am not sure there is anyone who has done the kind of work that we did.
Now, I'm curious, do you think that, for example, someone deliberately creates a move to have CEOs recruited from one part of Uganda? It could have been a coincidence.
I think human nature, we looked at human resource in all the enterprises. There was a CEO in one of the electricity companies from Masaka. The biggest percentage of staff in that enterprise were from Masaka. We had someone from Bushenyi who was running a post office. The biggest number of staff were from Bushenyi. So the tendency by human nature is to serve people that you know, people that are close to you, people are from your area. That happened almost in every enterprise, that the home district of the CEO would benefit more. And we made the recommendations because there are many people who came in as interns, as part-time, as what, and then they ended up becoming staff. So any avenue that could facilitate recruitment from the home area of a CEO were exploited. Some of them were legitimate and are part of the human resource manuals in those organizations of how people can join. But they exploited, but I am not happy particularly for that report, but I am happy that we were able to do work which I am sure nobody has done since we left that committee. My work in the budget committee and the committee on finance, something I'm very proud of. I have left parliament, I am still being invited to discuss finance-related matters. Yes, I am not an economist. There are economists in the country. I am invited to discuss budget. Recently, I was invited by economic students in Makerere, only to be stopped by the administration. Say, don't bring Ssemujju here. You can imagine students of economics inviting a journalist to speak about budget and finance. So the one thing I discovered is that the moment you dedicate time, it's always not too late to learn. Even things that you didn't know, if you dedicate time, you can learn and even do them better than those who are qualified in those areas. So I am very proud with my work in the budget committee, my work in COSASE. The rest is no more parliamentary business.
So someone who has written about power and served around and inside power, I would consider, for example, the legislative arm of government power, or being a national leader as a member of parliament power. What has this experience taught you about raw politics or raw power in Uganda?
there are many things that happen that first you may not publicly say, but also that because around Parliament many things happen. The discussions. I discovered, for example, the Parliamentary Commission, and that's why the levels of accountability are low. The connivance of the elite. Many of the things that you're going to do when you're in those offices, they're going to be done behind the cameras, they're going to be done in confidence, a lot of negotiation. So the faces that you see in public are not the faces that run things. But they can pretend. What they present to you is not what they are doing. What they state as a purpose is not the purpose. So if you are around Parliament, if you are in cabinet, the advantage that you get a lot of information, and you get to know who is influencing, who is doing what, than ordinarily what is said, what is reported. If everybody who has been in the power and around power one time ever gives you his story, I mean, people will be shocked. People will be shocked.
This connivance that you talk about, now that you've stepped outside Parliament, has your view of Parliament changed?
My view of Parliament, my view of Parliament hasn't changed. I look at Parliament as a platform. If you're opposition, there are many things you can do. You don't have to win a vote in Parliament. You do advocacy, you will mobilize. There are things that government will do or stop doing just because of agitation, just because of pressure, because you're also mobilizing public. So my view of Parliament is still important, but I think it has been dismantled systematically and progressively. If you're going to compare the 6th, 7th, and maybe the 11th Parliament. The new MPs were very angry with me when I said this is the 12th Parliament is likely to be the worst Parliament. I was invited to a training session of those new MPs, and they said I judged them harshly. But I think Parliament is not going to change. I don't think there will be any improvements. The handling of business can change, but the outcome is going to remain the same. But still, Parliament is still important. At least it gives you an opportunity to know, and a lot of information is made available to MPs. If you process it properly, the trouble is that there are almost no standards in Parliament. I looked at the policy statements from one of the presidency. If you are very critical in a report about them this year, next financial year, they will withhold all the information. I looked at the vehicle utilization report and the personnel. Nobody did an analysis. In the subsequent policy assessment, they didn't bring it. They just brought almost nothing. That happened with the defense. So Parliament is, whose duty is to hold the government accountable. A lot of time is lost. People never sit down there to do the work for which you, I'll include myself, for which you are paid. So it becomes a ceremony that you do this, you do this, and at the end of the day, whether the government has met standards, whether they have not met them, you continue making decisions in their favor.
Well, it would be quite unusual for you to expect MPs to have standards for a position whose qualification is just A-level certificate.
Even if you are O-level, if you say every policy statement must contain a vehicle utilization report, must contain a list of human resource and their remuneration, etc. Even casually looking at the statement, you will know that this one doesn't have it. But even when you raise it, they will find technical explanations, and the matter ends there. And this parliament, the new one, has started from where we stopped. They bring ministers with the dual citizenship nominees, and the speaker, a distinguished lawyer. Instead of guiding the committee to say these people don't qualify, he says, why don't we vote on this matter? How can you vote on a matter of law? And then they vote and say they have passed them. Yesterday, they told me I didn't follow on Wednesday that they had launched process. This parliament hasn't been properly constituted, fully constituted. There are no committees. They said they will suspend the rules because there is a requirement that for every loan application, the Committee on National Economy must scrutinize, look at the terms and conditions, and many other things. Because the Minister of Finance recently released a report, they looked at 50 foreign funded projects, 50. They usually call it external funding, money we have borrowed to execute different projects. And out of 50, I think 46 were either delayed, stalled, or even abandoned. You have 50 projects for which you have borrowed money. So before you sanction a loan, there are a few things you must ask, because most of the loans we obtain, no visibility studies. Government doesn't have money for counterfunding. If you're going to do a road, you're supposed to compensate people and they give way, and so on and so forth. But they told me they are going to suspend, and before I know, they have already passed the loans. So the parliament has made the same. You always want to join, but the decisions are going to be there, no standards. You just do work every day.
Let's continue that conversation after this break. For an entrenched system, where is the country headed? We talk about that through the eyes of the seasoned legislator and journalist after this break.
Festival bia bili mukage lirugogo muhuma showground mutenti bwaguga ku Saturday nga July buli comedian gwamanyi mu Uganda wano aja kubeerayo Amoti Malanguzi, MC Mariaki, MC Kapale, Madwata Nchiko, Maulana Drain, Mary Hatumbeto, Bizonto, Mickey Sims Too Funny, Nswangere, Teacher Mpamile, Bobby Brown and Nilo.
You're watching NBS Face Off. My guest tonight is Honorable Ssemujju Nganda, the Secretary General of PFF, seasoned legislator and journalist. You served with your colleagues through FDC and now PFF, and then you also had an opportunity where the National Unity Platform was leading the opposition. What surprised you the most about your colleagues in opposition, especially after testing the parks of power?
First of all, in Parliament, you work together. You work together, whether it was under FDC or under NOP, you'll have a cabinet comprising all political parties in Parliament. But outside, you are elbowing each other. Outside, you can't. So I think we all pretend that we are fighting to remove a government, because this government has entrenched itself. This government has taken over, captured the state. So the arsenal at their disposal is such that no one can confront it. You can't confront it alone. The same way we work in Parliament is the same way we should work outside. But I discovered that many of us who go to Parliament go there primarily because Parliament pays a salary, a huge salary. I joined the Parliament in 2011, where I think about 61 opposition MPs. But to get the 61 MPs to support one position was always very difficult. On average, you have just about half. who will support an opposition-generated position. I was chief opposition whip during the 10th Parliament, and I declined because when General Muntu asked me to serve as chief opposition whip, I said, no, MPs have no discipline, I am not interested. I keep reminding people, Muntu told me, we are training you to be a leader and you're not going to choose how we are going to train you. Eventually I accepted. The discipline, so you want to hold government accountable, but you are doing the same thing. Sometimes you are calling ministers are not in the parliament, but even your colleagues behind you are not there. People don't read, people don't prepare, whether opposition, because the moment you don't have the numbers, you must take serious. I told the people that the opposition must always win the argument. You may not win the numbers. But colleagues with whom you're in opposition, some of them are not even interested, they are not in parliament, they don't prepare. Their pursuit in parliament is just the salary. They are as bad as NRM or as anyone else. So even the little that you should be able to do, you end up not doing it. When I supervised the committees, one time I did a report to Afro, who was the leader of opposition, looking at the performance of chairpersons of accountability committees. You generally say you need to go and find out. There are chairpersons of accountability committees who never filed a report. 2.5 years, no report, not even a report of 2 paragraphs. But they are conducting meetings every day. Conducting meetings, rolling people in the mud, insulting them, abusing them, and there is no report. They move from one organization to another, URA, NSSF, what. The one thing I have discovered, private companies have targets, and those targets are supposed to be met for them to survive. I think governments and public institutions ordinarily don't have targets, and they can survive without meeting any. Because that parliament, for example, the budget of parliament has now risen to 1.2 trillion. What is the target? How many bills must parliament process? How many motions? If they don't meet them, what is the sanction? I looked at the judiciary. One time I used to sit on a committee on legal and parliamentary affairs, and they tell you the case backlog. You go to the lower courts, the magistrate court, and out of either 30 or 40,000 cases, they have done about 20. You go to court, the magistrate will arrive at 11, adjourn all the cases, and she leaves. Right now, we are in the High Court with the Dr. Kiza Wisje's case. The judge put it at 11. Sometimes he keeps time, sometimes he doesn't. Then at 11, Ruzira hasn't delivered the message. So the level of inefficiency, even if someone, because people usually spend a lot of energy on corruption, because corruption in Uganda, people think it's just stealing money. But if people are stealing time, you pay people for work not done. The other day we went to the pension office in Parliament. I've become a pensioner. I saw an MP I have not seen in 5 years. I asked Honorable Abdul Katun, is this guy an MP? For 5 years, I have not seen him. But every month he's paid. So the lack of standards, the lack of accountability, the cheating, because people think cheating means stealing money, but you are cheating time. So coming back to the question I asked the opposition, because you want to go into government, saying that these people have failed this and that, and that's why General Muntu kept telling us at FDC, that if we continue behaving the way we are behaving, it could even be worse when we get into government. And I saw a little bit of that from colleagues. And I'm not saying I am an angel, but you want to try with everybody.
Is that to say that the current faces we have in opposition, it would be very rare for them to step into government?
Not all of them. There are people who do a fantastic job. But there are many that if I am in charge of government, I wouldn't allow to access a public office, either because of their conduct or because of the levels of competence. People are usually very angry with me when I speak about competence, because you are running a country, people's lives. Every decision that you make as a consequence of either improving or not improving people's lives. People who don't have the basic competence, I wouldn't encourage them, and I have seen them, because it doesn't mean that NRM, because you see, NRM has a luxury. Even when they have people who are competent, they never allow them to do their work. And that's why competent and mediocres will mix freely. Because those with competence, there is no room to exercise that competence. If you're a mediocre, because you're doing nothing, so all of you are going to be judged. If you want to take over government from NRM, the levels of seriousness, the levels of competence should be different. And I have said, people get angry with me. There are many, sometimes even more than 60% of people in opposition, that if I had a way, I would never allow them to be part of government. But because you are few, so you cover up for each other.
In many ways that you've spoken out widely about power in Uganda, how would you describe power in Uganda? Many think it is concentrated in a few leaders or few family members. But when you look at sometimes decisions that are made, you question yourself whether these very few individuals actually have power, or there are certain technocrats that have captured power unknowingly.
We've moved from institutional to individual and eventually to family. At the beginning of President Yoweri Museveni's administration, I think because many of his contemporaries were still around, he would influence decision. He would work so hard to influence decision, but there will be institutional decisions. Because if you have Kategai around you, you have Mushega, you have Opakaburo, you will want to convince them before you make a decision. And it becomes if you look at the first extension, was it 1989? 1989, after 4 years, because NRM had said they will be here for 4 years, and then they will hand over power to civilian rulers. So that extension is something that they discussed and agreed that we need to do a constitution, we need to do the following, prepare the country, then you can call for competition and whoever wins takes over. The contemporaries, because Museveni has been very consistent, intelligent actor, started with the military, people who held power in the military started moving one after another. If you read Museveni's book and look at the formation when they are taking over power here, I think they had the 1st, 3rd, the 5th, 7th, I think they later created 9th and 11th Battalion. People who commanded these battalions at the time they took over power, one by one, they were removed from Kashiringi to Chihande to Samson Mande, Chakavale, etc. The ones who remained, like Ivan Koreta, were sometimes removed and put on what ordinarily was being called a Katebe, passive employment. So Museveni took over the military slowly, but he also created a military within the military. What began as a presidential protection unit of about 500 soldiers eventually grew into a presidential guard brigade. At the time it was a brigade, because a brigade is 21,000 soldiers. At the time it was a brigade, it was more than a division. Then it became now special forces. It has now become the army. But at one time, Museveni spoke proudly about his army and what he called the Sareze army. So the people of Luwero and those that they recruited outside his arrangement were Sareze army. So he had his own army. Even in the politics, he started creating his own politician within the larger NRM politics.
But let's speak about Anita Netamong, Parliament's legacy, loyalty, after the break. Anita Annette Among's downfall was quite dramatic, but then we also saw the rise of Jacob Oboth, now through the eyes of someone who was in parliament when the two leaders chaired different committees, later rose to speakership, and then the downfall. Honorable Ssemujju Nganda is our guest tonight on NBS Face Off. Honorable, were you among those who celebrated Anita Among's downfall?
No, I didn't. Because there was nothing to celebrate. You celebrate because you are sure there will be a change. Look, we have had two decisions to make in Parliament. One was the vetting of cabinet. They almost have done the same thing that Anita Among did. She was basic, ordinary. There will be a little bit of sophistication with the Oboth, but the things are going to be the same. There is no change.
So you would not look at her downfall as a win for Parliament's independence?
Because some of the things she crudely did them, there will be a change. She was so informal. She did conduct herself like she was running a public office. She was very informal. You will now have formal processes. But I have said Anita Among is my friend, but there is no group that will ever make her a speaker. I don't think anyone will. Because no experience, no knowledge, no sophistication. And she just woke up one day and she's a speaker with the promotion of President Museveni. I said at the time I was contesting to be a speaker against Kadaga and Oranya. My first press conference, I said we will need a lawyer to be a speaker. And I called upon the Honorable Segona, the Honorable Asumani Basariwa, and the Honorable Nwagawa. I said one of you should contest because the opposition must have a candidate. I still stand by the same position that Parliament is better off chaired by a senior lawyer because you're going to be making legal interpretation on many issues every day and you need to read and understand these things. So Anita Among, like many NRM MPs, lacked the basic requirement, sophistication to be a Speaker of Parliament. She also lacked the crowd experience and so on and so forth. So that's why she did things her own way. That's what she knew. She had been a mobilizer, a Museveni mobilizer, participating in influencing decisions in Parliament. Now she came to do the work. I mean, there are simple things, and I kept reminding her at one time she used to call me Mr. Procedure. Because there are procedures already in the rules, and she didn't seek to follow any.
Interestingly, how you keep pointing out sophistication as quite a big thing in managing power. Why is it important?
It is because even if you make a mistake, it must not be fatal that people withdraw trust completely. You see, Museveni has been around for many years. There are people who still think that he's a good leader because he's not done things the Amin way. He does the same things, but differently because of his levels of knowledge and intellectualism. The packaging matters in all these things. If you are dealing with Parliament, and that's why I am shocked by the behavior and conduct of Justice Waguma. We appeared for the Westgate case under Justice Kanya. She gave us a very bad judgment, but she listened to us politely. But Waguma is behaving like a court-martial general. So Anita Among, even where she's, because the results are going to be the same, even under or both, but allow processes to evolve and then arrive at a decision. I keep telling people in America they still have a death sentence. They don't hang people. They will inject you and you slowly die. So they don't look as cruel as Uganda who are hanging people. But the outcome is the same, that you're all killing human beings. And I think Anita Among is like a Uganda, that she can't inject you, she will hang you. So I didn't celebrate her downfall because it brings nothing. Look at the way both was brought. First, the military, through Museveni's son announcing that you will be a speaker. Why? Even UPDF supports you. And then the rest of the process was just a ceremony. Then Museveni's son announces the deputy speaker will be a woman. Later he says, no, I have consulted my father, the deputy speaker will be Tayewa. And you are the ones who are supposed to check cabinet, check Museveni and his ministers. But the son is the one appointing you, I think in a consultation with his father. So even if you want to celebrate the downfall of Anita Among, you want to celebrate because Parliament is going to be run and will make decisions differently. I don't think that will happen.
So when you see Jacob Oboth pledging to fight corruption inside Parliament, pledging loyalty both to NRM, to President Yoweri Museveni, to PLU, to the CDF General Moses Kainerugaba, you insist it's just going to be the same, just different levels of sophistication.
Loyalty to CDF, but you are supposed to be the boss of CDF.
Do you think that Jacob Oboth would, for example, push against certain unpopular policy?
He cannot.
For example, the UPDF Amendment Act,
but he's the one who brought it.
Bill, or the sovereignty bill.
Oboth
so someone who served under his leadership
as a Minister of Defense. He's the one who brought the amendment to reintroduce the military court twice variance. He chaired the committee. I was on the legal committee during the removal of age limit. And he kept shortchanging us. I went with the parliamentary sports team to Tanzania. Oboth had adjourned our committee to after Christmas and New Year. And that's how we left. We are in Tanzania playing football and we are told Oboth has called a retreat in Munyonyo. They want to, this matter of the age limit removal done within a week. I couldn't return, but some MPs were facilitated by Museveni to return. I am telling you, he will not do things the way Anita Among was doing them because Anita Among is a very ordinary woman. But he's going to do the same things or even worse, and it's even more painful. That's what I kept telling. Personally, like Professor Chiduma Kuya, the late, the first Ugandan to get a first-class law degree in Makerere was Dean of Faculty of Law. He's authored many books, but he was behaving as if he didn't go to a nursery school. It is more painful. I can't forgive Anita Among because, I mean, she's very ordinary. But Oboth, he was not at the second as a classmate. They were one class below me at the university. So you have the knowledge, you know the law, and then you begin misapplying it or misinterpreting it.
Because you're saying Anita Among, Jacob Oboth, same loyalty, just different faces or colors.
Different handling. But the results are going to be the same.
Let's take a break. When we return, I ask Honorable Ssemujju what he thinks about his colleagues in the opposition.
And that's it for today. Till the next episode.
You're watching NBS Face Off. My guest tonight is Honorable Ssemujju Nganda, Secretary General of the PFF.
But is he able to process that following into managerial capabilities? That I think I doubt, and I want to be truthful. I like him, we've met before. We may disagree in the politics, but I don't think he has capacity to process his popularity into, as I said, the managerial capability to run a party, but also to run a country. That I don't think.
What does that mean that for one to be a leader in his capacity, you need a certain level of experience to lead the opposition?
You're going to run Uganda. A country. First of all, even if you don't run Uganda, even the opposition itself, I have worked with Besigye. He has his own shortcomings. Maybe because the ideologies and the background is different. Besigye believed in working with everybody in this struggle against the life presidency and family rule. The fight against the opposition was even more fierce than the fight against the NRM. And the moment you begin fighting yourself, certainly, you see, when Museveni was in the way of fighting, There were other groups. Nkwanga was here, Kaira was here, even Moses Ali was in Western Nile fighting. They had meetings, and at one time they said to him, but moving forward, he will need to learn to work with others.
Would you say opposition under him has been weakened, or it's stronger?
It's not him who has weakened it, because even if it was West or any other person, Museveni may have taken advantage, because all of us have our weak points, and Museveni may take advantage of your weak points. The weakening of the opposition in the mind of Museveni and his group is that the moment we finish this one, this group is finished.
Is that a major mistake you hoped you should have avoided?
Yes, because when you work with
you were serving alongside him,
we have had a discussion.
He has even to offer advice.
He has even visited my home. We have had discussions, private. Agreed. Sometimes you may agree, because human beings are human beings. Today you agree and someone does something. But he has come home, and we've sat in my sitting room, and I've told him I don't think this is right. So I didn't want to offer my advice publicly to him. But we have had a discussion. Anyone who wants to fight the oppression in Uganda must do so with others, even if you have the following of everybody. Because you may have the following, but you are not going to deploy yourself everywhere. You need to deploy people. I remember when we were in Walk to Work, those protests that followed the 2011 elections, we formed committees for health, for legal, for finance, for everything. There are people, when Museveni was fighting in Iruwero, the fighters, the real fighters who were shooting, they thought they were the only ones who were fighting. They were calling Mbabazi and the Kairis, their external committee in Nairobi, cowards. At one time they even said they should court-martial Mama Mbabazi. That debate, I don't even call it stability, because even Libya was stable for actually 43 years when Gaddafi was in charge. But because he undermined institutions and he dealt with his contemporaries in politics, in the military. At one time, Mama Mbabazi thought I would be the successor. That chapter is now closed. These fellows that you see running towards Muhoozi, not because they love him, but they think that the indications are that Museveni is going to hand over to his son. But his son is reckless. So really, I only pray that Museveni can step back. I have told him this when we were on one of the talk shows. Do this country a favor. Don't take us that direction. You may put everybody in prison, you may subjugate everybody, but you are laying a foundation for Uganda to explode, and doesn't matter how long it will take.
Honorable Ssemujju Nganda, it's been a pleasure having you on NBS Face Off. Thank you for making time.
Thank you.
That's all we had for you this Sunday. Till next weekend. Good evening.